Good afternoon and happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on Loving Kindness, Part 2, Using Mindfulness to Navigate Turbulent Times. My name is Summer Meyer, and I'm excited to be with you here today. Just a reminder, feel free to ask questions and share your experiences. We have one poll we'll be asking during the webinar. We love it when you engage with us, and we will have that Q&A dialogue towards the end of our session today. One disclaimer before I introduce our speaker. The views and thoughts and opinions expressed in the webinar belong solely to the presenter and not necessarily to PeaceHealth. The presenter today is not a medical professional. However, he does have extensive experience in utilizing mindfulness practices to recover from multiple and severe traumatic experiences that he suffered as a child. So with that, I would love to introduce you to our speaker today. Please welcome Al Parikh. Al is a project manager here with us at PeaceHealth, and he's a mindfulness coach who has been practicing for over 29 years and coaching for 7 years. Al offers a weekly lunchtime mindfulness session for our caregivers here at PeaceHealth. And we're very honored that he has graciously offered to share his breadth of knowledge with our communities through this mindfulness webinar series. So with that, please welcome Al, and I'm going to turn it over to Al to give us an overview.
Okay. Thank you for that introduction, Summer.
You're
I would
welcome.
like to welcome all the yep, thanks. I would like to welcome all the participants to this webinar. We are going through some very tough and turbulent times. After COVID-19 broke, a group of 3 caregivers from Peace Health came together and decided to create an offering for the communities that Peace Health serves. So you already met Summer Meyer, and we have Lisa Tangen and myself. So the 3 of us, we collaborated together, and this series of webinars is a result of our collaborative efforts. Our sincere hope is that you get access to some knowledge, some tools, some insights that will help you manage your situation a little better. So this is a series of 8 webinars, and this specific webinar is the 7th one, and the final webinar will happen 2 weeks from now. So I want to give you a brief overview of the content that we will cover today. I am going to talk a little bit about mindfulness practice. Then I'll talk a little bit about loving kindness practice. And then we will talk about forgiveness. All right, we will explore this concept, this subject of forgiveness, and how beneficial it can be for our mental health. And then we will do a 15-minute guided meditation using loving kindness to forgive someone who has hurt or harmed us. And then Summer will open up the virtual floor for a question and answer session. So let's get started. I want to give you a brief overview on mindfulness. So what is mindfulness? Mindfulness is the basic human ability for us to be fully present and fully aware of where we are and what we are doing. Mindfulness is also not being overly reactive or being overwhelmed by things that happen around us and things that happen within us. So it is a basic human ability that we need to practice. In this webinar, we covered a number of amazing objects that we can use for our mindfulness practice. So we can use our breath. In other words, we can use our breath as a tool to stay in the present moment and use it as a tool to be aware of what's happening around us and what's happening inside of us. Similarly, we can use our body, our thoughts, our emotions, as well as our mind states to stay in the moment. And then there are some practices that actually complement and extend the practice of mindfulness. One such practice is loving kindness. Um, the previous webinar in this series was on loving kindness. We used loving kindness practice to, or rather, we used loving kindness for our loved ones and benefactors. Today, we will use loving kindness for forgiving someone who has hurt or harmed us. And the second practice that complements and extends mindfulness is Tonglen. I will talk a little bit about Tonglen towards the end of this webinar. So here is a poll for you, and Summer will take over from here for this poll.
Thank you, Al. That was a great introduction. We do want to just engage you really briefly here before we go deeper into loving kindness and hear from you about which best describes your experience. So I'm going to launch the poll here, and we'll just ask you to select one of these, whether you've ever done a meditation before, whether you've tried a few times to meditate, maybe in the past, maybe recently, or if you meditate every day or even multiple times a day or a week or a month. So feel free to participate here in our poll. It looks like we have 75% of you have voted. So just leaving it open for a couple more minutes, and then we'll close the poll up, and not minutes, excuse me, seconds, and then we'll close the poll up and show results. Okay, excellent. Thanks for participating here. So I'm going to go ahead and close the poll, and let's look at these results here. So we actually have most of the people on the call that have tried meditation a few times, and even 10% that meditate regularly. Looks like we have a pretty experienced audience with us here today, Al. So I'll go ahead and hide these results, and then feel free to continue on here.
Okay, thank you for your help, Summer.
Thank you. You're welcome.
I'm glad to know that. Great. Yeah, I'm glad to know that a lot of participants have already tried this practice, and there are few who actually do it on a regular basis. So that's amazing. Okay, onwards with our presentation. What is loving kindness? Loving kindness is a quality of the heart that simply wishes well to all beings without seeking anything back in return. So, loving kindness is a quality that we possess innately, it's within us. It's just that this quality gets obscured by layers and layers of conditioning as we go through life and as we have adverse experiences. In one of my past webinars, I talked about this metaphor of peeling onions. So, when you have an onion and you need to get to its seed, to its core, you have to peel off layers upon layers of the onion before you can get to the seed. In a similar way, this quality of loving kindness exists within us, but it's just obscured by these layers. And so when we do this practice on a conscious way, we let that quality shine through. We are able to peel off those layers and we can have loving kindness shine through us and we can take wise and skillful action. Another definition of loving kindness is that it is a cultivation of a steady, unconditional sense of connection that touches all beings without exception, including ourselves. Now, one crucial aspect in this definition is the part about our own selves. When we practice loving kindness, we keep ourselves front and center. We are not sacrificing ourselves for the sake of others. Rather, what we are doing when we are doing this practice, we are doing to benefit ourselves first. There are four recipients of loving kindness practice. And by recipients, I mean categories of people that you can offer loving kindness practice to. So the first recipient is loved ones and benefactors. So in my last webinar, we did loving kindness practice for loved ones. And this is actually easy to do so because we already love these individuals. So it's very easy for us to consciously offer our wish that they be happy and they be free and they live with ease because we love them already. The second recipient is oneself. Now, this is somewhat difficult to practice because we typically are extremely hard on our own selves. It's part of the culture that we live in, but it is possible to ease that hardness by this practice. The third category is loving kindness for neutral persons. Now, a typical example of a neutral person is the person at a supermarket checkout stand, someone who checks out our groceries, right? We might talk to that person, we might, smile at them, but we really don't know them, we don't really care about them. So that becomes a neutral person. The vast majority of human beings and beings on this planet are neutral to us. The fourth recipient is someone who has hurt or harmed us. Now, it's extremely difficult for us to perform this practice for someone who has hurt or harmed us because our default reaction is to seek revenge, to to wish harm for them, to wish that they suffer the way they have made us suffer. So this is difficult, but in an inverse way, you can get the most benefits by doing this practice. You can have a transformative effect on your health when you do this practice for someone who has hurt or harmed us. I want to take a brief segue. Right now, we are going through the throes of COVID 19. COVID 19 can have a tremendous adverse impact on our mental health. Okay. And the way it affects some of us is that we have fear of contracting the illness ourselves. We have fear of losing our jobs. In many cases, we are dealing with actual job losses. And then there is the stress of forced isolation in the form of social distancing. So these manifestations are severe enough, but for some of us who have already experienced severe trauma in the past, these conditions create what is called as a trauma trigger. A trauma trigger is a psychological stimulus that actually recreates our past traumatic experiences. So not only do we have to deal with the stressors from the current pandemic, but we now have to simultaneously deal with our past traumatic experiences. They are brought back to life and they come back roaring upon us. So it can be extremely destabilizing, they can be extremely stressful. So it is very important for us to keep doing these practices. And by that, I mean practices of mindfulness, loving kindness, and even practices beyond this domain to keep us mentally healthy and fit. So that is one reason why we chose this particular topic, this particular webinar today, loving kindness for someone who has hurt or harmed us. And I would request you right now to think of someone who has hurt you or harmed you in the past. Typically, when you think of that person, you are filled with anger, hatred, resentment, guilt, shame, etc. Right? That person will evoke extreme reaction in you. A few minutes from now, maybe 10, 15 minutes from now, we will do loving kindness practice where you will forgive that person. Okay? And see what opens up for you. See if it creates some relief, some space, some freedom inside of you. All right. So it's important for you right now in the comfort and safety of your home to think of someone who has hurt or harmed you, um, so that you can forgive that person. Now, if there are no such persons in your life, that's fantastic. In which case you can think of someone who irritates you. All right, it could be someone that you know, it could be someone in the popular culture, someone who who will hold a public office, and see what happens when you try to forgive that person. So keep that in mind, as we go through the rest of the presentation. um, think of such a person, and when we do this practice, you will forgive that person. So let's talk about forgiveness. What exactly is forgiveness? So there is this definition, it's quite lengthy, but I'll talk about the main attributes. So forgiveness is willingly, willfully putting aside feelings of resentment towards someone who has hurt us. Okay, we are willingly putting aside those adverse negative feelings. Forgiveness is not about reconciliation. Forgiveness is not about excusing somebody else. It is a voluntary transformation of our feelings and attitudes from anger, resentment, hatred to compassion and generosity towards the person. All right. And forgiveness is sometimes considered an important process in psychotherapy or counseling. Now, this definition has been adopted by the American Psychological Association. So, I want to point out the fact that forgiveness is actually an evidence based practice. It's not something airy fairy, it's something that is very solid. It's a practice that has a lot of solid research behind it, and a practice whose benefits are actually proven and documented in clinical settings. When we forgive a person, a group, or our own selves, what happens is we heal the pain within us that trigger unpleasant emotions and thoughts. Okay? Forgiveness is about our own selves. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting or excusing the harm done to us. It also does not mean making up with the person who caused the harm. The benefits of forgiveness. So these are the benefits, okay? Healthier relationships, improved mental health, less anxiety, less stress, fewer symptoms of depression, improved heart health, improved self-esteem. And these benefits are listed, excuse me, they are listed on the website of Mayo Clinic. Like I mentioned earlier, this is an evidence-based practice, and its beneficial effects, its benefits are actually documented using solid research in clinical settings. And I've provided this link for you to check out these benefits in more detail. So let's talk a little bit about the myths and the truths of forgiveness. There are a lot of myths in the popular culture about forgiveness. So one myth is that forgiveness is about the other person, but the truth is that the forgiveness is about you. Another myth is that if you forgive someone, then you should forget it ever happened. Actually, that's not true. Forgiveness and forgetfulness are two very different things. Once you forgive someone for their trespasses against us, you will continue to have memories, but those memories and those emotions will lose their grip on you. It'll be very easy to deal with those thoughts and emotions that come up without getting overwhelmed or without getting destabilized in any way. So keep this in mind that forgiveness and forgetfulness are two very different things. Another myth is that you need to tell the person that I forgave them. And the truth is that no, you don't have to tell them that you forgave them. You are not expected to reach out to that person or initiate contact with that person. Forgiveness is about you. There's yet another myth that if I forgive, then it might happen to me again. This is a very common myth that people believe that if I forgive someone, then I'll become a doormat for that person or for others. But the truth is that forgiveness can allow people to develop new ways to protect themselves physically and emotionally. In other words, forgiveness can actually make us stronger. Another myth: after I forgive, I will never feel angry or hurt about it again. Um, Unfortunately, the truth is that forgiveness is a healing process. You need to give it some time uh, to create freedom and space. The beautiful thing is that you don't have to do this practice for a set period of time before you start reaping the effects and the benefits. You can start getting the benefits after each practice of forgiveness. All right. But it is its own process, and depending on the sheer amount of time that you have been with that pain, with that experience, right, it might take a little longer for forgiveness to work. So it's a healing process, and there is an element of patience associated with it. So when you do the forgiveness, you have to be patient to see its effect working within you. So coming back to loving kindness, remember this is a webinar on loving kindness. All right. At the very start, I gave a brief definition of loving kindness practice. So essentially, loving kindness allows us to direct goodwill and love towards all sentient beings. Okay, this form of meditation allows us to develop an attitude of kindness and compassion. So, loving kindness provides a wonderful framework for the practice of forgiveness. So you are using loving kindness to send loving kindness to all kinds of people, people whom you love. All right. You use the same practice to send loving kindness to your own self. You use it to send it to a person that you don't know. And you use the same framework, the same meditation to forgive someone who has hurt or harmed you. Forgiveness is always an act of kindness, and it is compatible with all religions and all philosophies that promote kindness and non harm. There is nothing in the practice of forgiveness that will contradict your deeply held religious beliefs. Or even if you are an atheist, for example, right? There is nothing about this practice that will contradict your fundamental beliefs of who you are and where you reside in relationship to other people. So, I want to talk about the dynamics of loving kindness practice, and then we will actually get on with the practice. Okay, we will use three phrases for this practice. May you be happy, may you be peaceful, and may you, excuse me, live with ease. You can either bring the image of the person that you want to forgive in your mind and then simply say mentally, may you be happy, may you be peaceful, may you live with ease. Or if you are not able to get an image of them in your mind, then you can simply say their name. May Joe Blow be happy. May Joe Blow be peaceful. And may Joe Blow live with ease. Even though Joe Blow is a person who has hurt you or harmed you in the past. So this is where forgiveness comes in. Then you synchronize the practice with your breath. So when you inhale, you say, may you be. And when you exhale, you say happy. Using the breath, synchronizing this practice with your breath helps us anchor this practice. It helps our mind get focused attention while doing this practice. And so we start the practice by focusing on yourself. You have to remember that you too deserve unconditional love, kindness, and happiness, just like everybody else. Remember what I told you in the past, that forgiveness is about you, it's not about somebody else. So you start with yourself, and you have to remember that you are forgiving someone because you love yourself more. Then you repeat the three phrases of loving kindness for your own self. And while doing so, when and if you experience some tender feelings in your heart, right, you consciously expand that feeling and then use it to use it for the person who has hurt or harmed you. And again, if you're not comfortable bringing someone to mind who has hurt or harmed you, bring to mind someone who irritates you. Um, and then you use loving kindness phrases for that person, wishing for that person what you wish for yourself. So you don't have to remember all of this. Just remember this one point about synchronizing the practice with your breath. And when we do the guided practice, I will guide you step by step. So let's do this practice. Summer, do you mind kicking us off with a bell chime?
Sure.
Welcome to the loving kindness meditation. We will do this meditation for someone who has hurt or harmed us. Take a moment to let your body settle in a comfortable position. Relax the whole body. Keep the head, neck, and back erect but not rigid. Keep the hands comfortably placed on the lap or on the knees. Keep the hands on your sides if you are lying down. Intentionally cultivate an attitude of patience, gentleness, and kindness towards yourself. Allow your eyes to gently close and tune in to the feeling of the breath flowing in and out of the body. Focus your attention on the sensation of the breath moving past the nostrils or on the sensation of the breath moving into the belly, lifting it during each in-breath and receding gently on each out-breath. Follow the breath as it comes in and goes out. Find comfort in your posture and settle into it. Allow your body to be as soft and relaxed as possible. Now, focus your attention exclusively on yourself. Remember that you too deserve unconditional love, kindness, and happiness, just like all other living beings. You are choosing to forgive someone who has hurt you because you love yourself more. I will now repeat some traditional phrases of loving kindness. In the short period of silence that follows after each phrase, repeat it a few times to yourself and breathe in qualities of warmth, kindness, compassion, or love with yourself. Do this with all your heart. If you notice that your mind has wandered off, gently bring it back to this practice. May I be happy. May I be peaceful. May I live with ease. Remember that you are choosing to forgive someone who has hurt you because you love yourself more. Now, call to mind someone who has hurt or harmed you, someone for whom a sense of hurt, resentment, or ill will naturally arises in your heart. Get an image of that person, say the person's name to yourself, and offer the phrases of loving kindness to them, wishing for them what you wish for yourself. I will now repeat some traditional phrases of loving kindness. In the short period of silence that follows after each phrase, repeat it a few times to yourself and do this with all your heart. Start with a small flame of the intent behind each phrase, attend to it and nurture it. Slowly get more fuel for the tender feeling that arises in your heart as you offer loving kindness to the chosen person and allow it to expand and to gain momentum. If you notice that your mind has wandered off, gently bring it back to this practice. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you live with ease. Repeat these phrases towards yourself and towards the person who has hurt or harmed you. Do this with all your heart. Get more fuel for the tender feeling that arises in your heart as you offer loving kindness to the chosen people and allow it to expand and to gain momentum. If you notice that your mind has wandered off, gently bring it back to this practice. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you live with ease. We now come to an end of this meditation. When you are ready, you can open your eyes. Thank you for bringing us back, Summer.
Thank you, Al.
Okay, I want to take just a minute to talk about another practice that supports and extends mindfulness, and that practice is called Tonglen. Tonglen is also called giving and receiving. So, Tonglen is Tibetan for giving and taking or giving and receiving. It refers to a meditation practice found in Tibetan Buddhism tradition. Now, just want to add a quick disclaimer. You don't have to be a Buddhist to do this practice. You can keep your uh, religious beliefs intact. There is nothing in this practice that will contradict your personal beliefs. So, within this word Tonglen, Tong means giving or sending, and Len means receiving or taking. So the core of the practice is that when you breathe in others' pain so that they can be well. And when you breathe out by sending them whatever we feel would bring them relief and happiness. And then we just repeat this cycle. So this practice is done to develop our compassion and our ability to be present for our own suffering as well as for the suffering of others. And how this ties back to the topic of forgiveness is that when someone has hurt or harmed us, they were suffering. A person who is happy will never hurt or harm anybody else, you see? So the practice of Tonglen can also help us practice forgiveness. Tonglen is a practice of great kindness that opens up our whole being to the overwhelming presence of suffering around us. One aspect of suffering, when someone hurts us, for example, right? When we feel hurt, when we feel anger and resentment, we also tend to isolate ourselves. And that feeling of isolation can be as unhealthy as the effect from that interaction. So Tonglen removes that feeling of isolation. You will feel that you are not the only person who is suffering, that there are others who are suffering in the same way. Now, this is not to diminish your suffering, but it is to open up your heart and use it to take skillful action to deal with your own pain. And finally, it builds our strength and willingness to transform alienation into compassion. And I want to recommend a book real quick by a teacher called Pema Chodron. And she has written this very short book where she describes this practice. So I highly recommend that if you're interested, you check this out. All right, so we come to the post practice session. Summer, can you take over from here?
Sure, Al. Thank you so much for leading us through the loving kindness and forgiveness meditation practice today. I would love the audience to feel free to chime in and share with us about any experiences you may have had doing the meditation today. Sometimes it's interesting to just notice if you felt a certain way beforehand and how you're feeling now. Also, if you have any questions for Al, we do have a few minutes where he can answer any specific or customized questions for you individually. So let me check our questions here and see. We do have one from Lisa here. She's asking, what if someone has a lot of people in their lives who have hurt them? Should they do this practice for the group or one by one?
I would say that you should do this practice one by one. All right. And then once you are comfortable with this practice, once it becomes easier for you to forgive specific individuals, then you can do it for the whole group. So you start with one person at a time and then do it for the group. And I'm sorry that Lisa has had this experience of being hurt by multiple people. And I hope that this practice can help her heal from some of these effects.
Thank you so much, Al. Yes, in fact, um, the meditation for me is interesting because I really like the breath. Just wanted to make a quick comment about breathing in and breathing out and how this is tied to the system of our lungs and our breathing. I think that that can be pretty powerful as well. And I appreciate that that is included, that connection to the breath.
Great. Thank you.
And let's see here. So feel free if anyone else has any specific questions or any comments about how they're feeling. Personally, I'm feeling a lot more peaceful after going through the practice today. And let's see. So if no other comments, we can go ahead and move along here on the slide deck. And just a quick reminder, the resources and handouts will be posted. We'll do that by next week. And Al has a website at summitmindfulness.com where you can reference his recorded presentations to do mindfulness practice on your own. There's several resources available there, and they're all available at no charge for you. So definitely check out summitmindfulness.com. And then we would greatly appreciate it after this if you would complete our survey. We read every single comment and try to improve for the next time. And we will be having our final mindfulness webinar in 2 weeks on July 24th, where we sort of tie all of this together. It'll be called Putting It All Together. So we'll probably receive an invite for that if you would like to join. We also have our previously recorded mindfulness sessions available on the breath, the body, the emotions, the thoughts, and the mind states. So plenty of different practices for you to try out if you were unable to join our previous mindfulness sessions with Al. If you know of anyone who might benefit, also feel free to share the link with them and sign up for our Healthy You newsletter. Thank you so much, Al, for leading us through this practice.
Hey, Samar. Sure. Hey, Samar, I just want to make a quick comment. The guided meditation that we just did, loving kindness for someone who has hurt or harmed us, that script or that track is not on my website at this point in time. I just have a script. So if participants are interested, they can email the Healthy You team and I'll be happy to send across the script. I'm actually waiting for the recording studio to open up so that I can get this and other meditations recorded.
Oh, good, good. Very, very good. Yes, and it's nice to reference these recordings later because you can fast forward through the intro sections if you want to get straight to the mindfulness practice. So keeping that in mind, and just wanted to thank you, Al, again for hosting this webinar for us today, leading us through this great practice. And thank you to all our participants for joining. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.